Good evening and welcome to Daily News Simplified. In today's edition, dated 1st of May 2024, we are going to take the following articles with respect to your civil services examination. The articles of the day that we will be dealing with are with respect to wealth redistribution, Street Vendors Act, and immunization and healthcare sector in India. And with respect to the preliminary exam, we will be dealing with articles with respect to methane production, Article 39B, and fertilizer subsidy. So without further delay, let us begin our discussion. So the first article that we are going to deal with is a very interesting article which appeared on page number 8 of the Hindu paper of today. What is the context of this article? That because of ongoing elections in India, general elections in India, there is a heated debate with respect to property rights and wealth redistribution in India. Now, what is the context? What is the syllabus with respect to this? Your GS paper 2 says that Indian Constitution, historical underpinnings, significant provisions and are the part of the examination process. And in the past, there has been a direct question based on doctrine of basic structure in India. Now let us briefly understand the concept of property and the concept of equality and how they are interlinked. So in West, what is considered is that property is a source of virtue, right? And propertied class is considered as a very reasonable class that has, in fact, the origin of right to vote was also linked to the propertied class itself. But in India, because of the historical conditions such as the caste system and colonialism and so on and forth, the property got localized in the hands of few. So in India, right to property or property itself is a matter of debate because there is a rising trend in inequality as well. And even in the 21st century, 70 years after the independence, we see that as per even famous reports like Oxfam report, they say that property is concentrated in the hands of few, and this concentration is increasing day by day and year on year. So in this backdrop, let us understand the constitutional framework with respect to addressing inequality. So our constitution's preamble itself says that we need to secure social and economic justice. Furthermore, the constitution's article 14 and 19 secure equality and liberty with respect to Indian citizens, and part 4, that is directive principles of state policy, say that we need to secure economic justice for everyone. So with respect to this, let us understand the origin of right to property in the Indian context, how the debate evolved, how it progressed, and what is the current status with respect to right to property. Now, some of you might think that how is right to property and inequality linked? So the simple reason is that in Indian conditions, it is assessed, it is observed that right to property has been directly linked with inequality because property has been concentrated in the hands of few as per various sociologists and various scholars. That is their interpretation. So let us understand the historical evolution of right to property in India. So even before the enactment of Constitution, the Constitution has borrowed its various provisions from Government of India Act 1935. So Section 299 of Government of India Act 1935 provided that there is a right to property and property cannot be taken away on whimsical ways, and if the property is taken away, there needs to be fair compensation. Moving on, inspired by this particular article, right to property was added as a part of fundamental rights under which clause? Under Article 19(1)(f), right? So this was given a status of fundamental right. So you need to understand that there are various kinds of rights in India. Obviously, there are legal rights. They have legislative backing. Somewhere higher somewhere on a higher pedestal lies constitutional rights. Obviously, so these rights are given in the constitution, but they do not enjoy the same protection as fundamental rights, and on the apex level lie fundamental rights. So you imagine the right to property was accorded the status of fundamental rights under the Indian Constitution, which was inspired by even Government of India Act 1935. But however, there were two things going on parallelly. On one side, judiciary was very much adamant on protection of individual liberties and fundamental rights of the individuals. On the parallel train, the government or the state wanted what? They wanted to pursue the noble goals of redistribution of wealth, the Gandhian goals of eradicating poverty and providing social justice. So you might be remembering this person. Kindly write in the comment section the name if you are able to recognize this person. Kindly write his name in the comment section. So with the overall objective of land reform, one of the purpose was redistribution of land to landless, promoting equality and social justice, so on and forth. With the objective of these land reforms, government carried out the First Amendment Act in 1951 itself. That is, only 3 years after independence, we amended our constitution with bringing the First Amendment Act of 1951, which inserted two articles in the constitution. First one was Article 31A and second one was 31B. Okay. Now, what did Article 31A did? Article 31A defined estate to encompass almost all kind of fields, even fallow land, barren land, fertile land, so on and forth. It made the language made the definition of land or estate very much comprehensive. Now, what was the objective behind it? To provide land redistribution laws, various subclause, and so on and forth, right? And subsequently 31B was provided, which provided with us with 9th schedule of Indian Constitution. And you all know what happens to any law when it is placed under the protection of 9th schedule. So this was later on challenged in IC Golaknath versus State of Punjab case, in which Supreme Court said that Parliament has got no power to take fundamental rights of people, because this was a fundamental right to property, and then government started confiscating the property of individuals, and even individuals were coming up with various kind of schemes, right, to so that to evade those laws, right? So this whole debate got concluded for a while in the Golaknath case, in which the Supreme Court said that Parliament has got no power to touch upon the fundamental rights of people. Now you imagine, are you able to recognize the attitude of judiciary over here? At this point of time, judiciary was all about protecting the rights and liberties of individuals, right? But however, the state is trying to catch up with the noble cause of redistribution. Okay. Now, in response to this, what does the legislature do? Legislature comes up with another constitutional amendment. Over the period, in response to Golaknath case, the legislature came up with 25th Constitutional Amendment Act, which inserted Article 31C in the Constitution. This particular Article 31C made it explicit that the laws can be saved to give effect to various directive principles of the state policy. Okay. So if a law is saved to give effect to directive principle of a state policy, that law, even if it is a fundamental right, can be changed, right? So this was the Constitutional Amendment Act that was carried out by the 25th Constitutional Amendment Act. All this debate came up and summed in the Keswanand Bharti case. So here we might be missing one or two constitutional cases, right? But this is the broader framework of the journey. For the detailed notes, you can refer to the notes that are being provided along with, right? So in Keswanand Bharti case, the Supreme Court with it, that was the highest, largest bench of Supreme Court, that is of 13 judges, right? It upheld the validity of 31C, but it made it reviewable, right? So that is where the doctrine of basic structure and doctrine of judicial review came into being. However, Justice H.R. Khanna remarked that right to property under Article 19(1)(f) does not enjoy the same status as equal to the other fundamental rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. Now, this statement, and see, H.R. Khanna was the judge. 6 judges were on this side and 6 judges were on this particular side, and Justice H.R. Khanna's judgment became the decisive call in this particular case. So he kind of what he did, he balanced the both perspectives. On one side, it upheld the validity of 31C, but also on the other side, he said that right to property does not enjoy the equal status as far as other fundamental rights are concerned. And subsequently, the 44th Constitution Amendment Act, what it did, it abolished the right to property under 19 clause 1 and made it a constitutional right under Article 300A. Okay, so right now, what is the status of right to property in India? The status of right to property in India is that you can say that yes, it is a legal right, it is a constitutional right, but it is not a fundamental right in Indian Constitution. Moving on, coming back to article, what the article discusses is that as of now, there is no need to go for so much radical measures such as redistribution of wealth. So these are the ideas, these ideas like redistribution of wealth, redistribution of property, so on and forth. These ideas are the ideas, archaic ideas of 19th and 20th century debates between communism and liberalism. As far as we are concerned, we have opted for a centrist model and we have given equal primacy to the individual rights as well as collective rights. So in our constitutional morality, in our constitutional framework, we cannot say that we can go for so much radical ideas that state can take away all of the property of an individual, right? So we have opted for a balanced model. So what is the way forward in this context? If you are asked in particular examination, what can you write? First is that there is no need to go for such kind of aggressive measures like wealth redistribution, right? We acknowledge and still respect the right to property as a constitutional right under Article 300A. So what can we do? What else can we do? We can go for better implementation of such developmental schemes. We can come up, the state can come up with better schemes, and more important than better schemes, better implementation of schemes. We can go for progressive taxation, policies like universal basic income, so on and forth. But you cannot just question that yes, we will go for wealth redistribution after certain mandate, right? Then we have repeatedly discussed that social sector spending in India is going down over the period of time. So what is needed here? That we need the social sector spending, and also whatever was social spending that was happening in the past couple of years, that was happening with respect to healthcare, and that too only because of COVID pandemic. So other sectors like other healthcare sectors, jobs, employment, education, training, we need to come up with conducive policies so that these sectors are given equal attention. So the focus is that we need to increase social sector spending. The Economic Survey of India, I guess 2021 Economic Survey has suggested that there is a need of ethical wealth creation. It says that the invisible hand of market's hands are considered as invisible as per the theory of Adam Smith. must make a handshake with the trusted hand of state, and in this way we need to come up with ethical means of wealth creation and abjure the unethical means of wealth creation. That means we are in one sense promoting Gandhian ideal of trusteeship, that the private enterprise by itself, apart from tax, uh, gives various mechanisms such as corporate social responsibility. Then there is a need of emphasis, there is a need to provide emphasis on skill development and entrepreneurship. Nobody, you need to understand that nobody becomes rich by killing the rich. You should not focus on the principle that you, oh yes, we just will just rob Peter to pay Paul. That the principle does not work. Entrepreneurship, job generation, that is the way forward with respect to removing the inequalities, right? Then various scholars, various institutions, even institutions like IMF have suggested that when you invest in women, when you invest in bringing women to the main fold of economy, you can, India can increase its GDP by close to 20%. As of now, we are growing with respect to nearby 6 to 7%. But if we bring women to our economic main fold, we can grow by close to 20 to even 25%. Then next is with respect to agriculture, close to 70% of population as of now, also 60 to 70% of population is dependent on agriculture. We need to invest in agriculture, we need to invest in climate smart agriculture, so that agriculture, even though agriculture has taken a backseat, but still it is one of the backbones of Indian economy. So agriculture, strengthening agriculture is directly going to contribute with respect to removing inequalities. And then lastly, for urban workers and laborers, as you know, it is also 1st of May, that is May Day, International Day of Labor. That another suggestion is with respect to reforming workforce laws, that is with respect to the strict and better implementation of Minimum Wages Act, and a progressive provision such as universal basic income. So that is all with respect to the debate on wealth redistribution. I hope you liked it. Kindly share your emotions with respect to hitting the like button, right? Moving on to another social sector issue with respect to street vendors in India. Let us see this article in the summary form. What is the context? The Street Vendors Act, officially known as the Street Vendors Protection of Street Vendors and Regulation of Street Vending Act 2014, has completed nearly a decade, right? So the article is with respect to ineffective implementation of Street Vending Act and the pending issues of street vendors across India, right? The syllabus mapping of this article is again with respect to your GS paper 2, which says that government policies and interventions for the various sectors and weaker sections of the society are of special concern to UPSC. And in the past 2022, UPSC has picked up one of the weaker sections of the society, that is persons with disabilities, and asked a question. And again, let us see in the details that the same problems are again highlighted by the authors with respect to the street vendors. Let us read the question. The Right of Person with Disabilities Act 2016 remains only a legal document, just like our this act, right? Without intense sensitization of government functionaries, that is bureaucracy. You people, future civil servants, without intense sensitization of government functionaries and citizens regarding disability. So what is the question asking? That because of the insensitivities shown by the government functionaries, the Person with Disabilities Act remains only a legal document but has not been adequately enforced. Moving on to the topic, let us understand the importance of street vendors in Indian economy. The first importance is with respect to affordability. Even you as students, most of you must be living outside your homes or must be having some experience in your graduation or schooling with respect to living outside your home. So obviously it is very obvious that we cannot stay at our homes all the time. We need to go to various urban centers in search of jobs, in search of education, so on and forth. So it is the street vendors that provide you with affordable and low cost budgetary food, right? So these are the people who make your city life affordable, especially in the student phase or in the job phase. Then it is a source of crucial employment generation. These are considered as self-employed people, and these avenues of street vending provide migrants and urban poor with a opportunity of consistent and modest income. Next is with respect to preservation of local culture. So most of the street vendors are famous for their local cuisine expertise. For example, many in even in urban centers like Delhi, many people from, let us say, Maharashtra would come and start selling vada pav, right? So the identities of cities are also associated with the street vendors, right? Mumbai's identity is with respect to cannot be denied or cannot be separated with, let us say, a vada pav, or similarly Chennai's identity cannot be separated from a dosai. So most of the good tasty food is made by the street vendors. And then lastly, they are essential for providing ensuring the nutritional needs of the people, especially weaker sections of the society. With all this, uh, let us see the significant provisions of the Street Vendors Act 2014. The aim of this act was to protect and regulate the street vending activities. The next objective was to give a positive recognition and role to street vendors in the economy and ecosystem of the city. As of now, prior to this legislation, they were not even recognized as one of part of ecosystem of the city. So one of the objective was to provide them with a life of dignity, to provide them recognition and recognize them as a part of city's ecosystem. Yes, in many places, many cities, right, there are streets which are known for various street vendors. For example, Chappan Dukan in Indore is very famous for its street food. Initially, it used to be occupied by various street vendors only, right? Then next objective of this act was that it delineates responsibility and role of various stakeholders. Various stakeholders in this case are local authorities, municipalities, and street vendors. Then the next objective and provision of this act was to ensure participatory governance through TVC. Here TVC stands for vending committees. Then lastly, it was made with the objective of providing grievance redressal mechanism in case that there is a dispute between various street vendors and the authorities. So now where have we lagged? What are the challenges in its implementation? That despite 1 decade of its implementation, we see the sorry state with respect to street vendors in India. So the first challenge is with respect to the administrative challenge. Pardon. The first challenge is with respect to implementation is the administrative challenge. As you all know that issues like red tapeism, harassment, eviction by the local bodies and local authorities, and bureaucracy still has the mindset issue when it comes to street vendors. Then equally important is with respect to the lack of awareness when it comes to these particular laws. Even at some point authorities are not aware of these particular legislations, and more important than that, the street vendors are not aware about their particular rights when it comes to street vending act. The next issue is with respect to the town vending committees. They are made only for tokenistic purpose and are under the control of civic authorities, right? So town vending committee is a unique provision in this act. This town vending committee is made up of various civic authorities, and one of the important provision in it is that 40% of the membership of town vending committee would come from street vendors, and out of that 40% representation, 33%, that means one third, that means close to 13 to 14 members out of 100 would be women members, right? So women vendors as well as other vendors, street vendors, would be part of the town vending committee. But again, the problem is with respect to not the legislation, these are the ideals, but the practical on ground situation. They are made only for a tokenistic purpose and are under the absolute control of civic bodies. Then again, another issue is that the urban local bodies are not sufficiently motivated to carry out these social legislations, these welfare mechanisms. What they are concerned more with, unfortunately, because of the issues of corruption and all, they are concerned with big ticket investment, big ticket projects. For example, sewer lines, right? Construction of roads, developments of parks, development of uh, RW residential colonies, so on and forth, because there uh, there is a scope of, unfortunate scope of corruption over there, and they are not interested at all in investing in these kind of, so their time in these kind of social legislations. Next is focus on the associated issue with respect to this is that they also don't get much time because they are too much busy with implementation of top down schemes. So give me an example of top down scheme that is going on in one of the that is going on in the cities. For example, it is the smart city mission. It is a top down scheme, since it is being directed by center, steered by center. So obviously it becomes one of the top priorities of the local government that they carry out the projects with respect to smart cities on a priority basis, and these constitution of town vending committees and these social legislation take a backbench. Lastly, there are two social issues that they are not considered as a part of legitimate contributor to economy. In fact, many have a perception that all they generate is kind of black money, which they do not pay taxes, so on and forth. So these are the perceptions of normal people, general people, and that is why they also face discrimination. And another feature is that in our cities, what we are doing through the projects like smart cities, we are trying to make our cities as world class cities, so to say world class cities tag. But here, have we imagined the natural aspect of bazaars in India? We are trying to ape the city standards or city architectures of western cities, but here in India, the bazaar model has been a part of Indian cities for centuries. So that is where we have labs. Now with this, let us understand some suggestions and what can be the way forward with respect to this. So first is obviously the effective implementation. The law in itself does not have much loopholes except for a couple that we'll discuss. So effective implementation of laws in itself in positive faith would solve most of the problems. Then there needs to be decentralized management of urban local bodies and at TVC level. Then the thought of these street vendors need to be make a part of integrated part of urban planning. And then one of the aspect which is significantly needs to be relooked is that this legislation mandates that only 2.5% of the population let us say there is a sector in which 1000 people are living, right? In this sector 1000 people are living, so 2.5% of 2000 is 25. There can be only 25 street vendors in this locality. So there is a mandated limit, statutory mandated limit of 2.5%, which needs to be corrected. There it needs to be increased so that there can be more street vendors in particular localities, right? So this is all with respect to this particular article on Street Vendors Act. Let us move on to another aspect that is going to deal with immunization and healthcare in India. What is the context? 2024, the year 2024 marks the 50-year anniversary of World Health Organization's expanded program on immunization. And in this context, our GS paper 2 syllabus says that healthcare is an important aspect. And in the past, I guess in 2022, UPSC has directly asked that critically examine the role of World Health Organization in providing global health security during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this question has two aspects. First one being that WHO is important for UPSC, and the second aspect is that universal immunization or vaccinization is important. So again, the article also deals with the same spirit, and the author say that we need to make EPI as an essential program of immunization. So after this World Health Organization's expanded program on immunization, we also came up with our own universal immunization program in 1978. India started its universal immunization program in 1978, but however, it was localized only for the diseases that are caused to children. Here the authors argue that we need to go for universal immunization program, that means for the children as well as even for the adults, right? So now let us understand the benefits of vaccination programs, right? So it is assessed, it is found out by research that every rupee or every dollar spent on vaccination has 11 times returns. You must all be understanding and knowing that there is a concept, it is a saying that prevention is better than cure. You spend more on cure, either you spend more on cure or you spend less on prevention. So immunization or vaccinization is a part of prevention. It is a part of preventive medicinal approach. Then here in India, because secondary healthcare is very much dependent on private sector, if universal immunization is done, people will fall ill in less numbers, and subsequently their bills or their off the pocket expenditures on private healthcare institutions will fall. That is the second advantage with respect to universal immunization program. Then there are noted benefits that were discovered even in the COVID-19 pandemic, that universal immunization, after universal immunization we develop a kind of herd immunity, right? And then there are benefits like reduced risk severity and prevention of future outbreaks. So it was all seen in the subsequent, after Delta variant, the subsequent variants, subsequent waves were much less dangerous because of the development of herd immunity and preventive outbreaks. Now, what have been the various government initiatives with respect to universal immunization in India? The first one is that government has introduced new vaccines with respect to IPV, rotavirus, measles, and rubella virus, right? But then again, these are specific with specific reference to children. And also with respect to children, there is a mission Indradhanush. Moreover, the government has invested heavily in capacity building and training of various staff with respect to immunization, right? And we have also developed a even portal. So what is this even portal? It is a digital portal which digitizes the stock management and real-time assessment of vaccine stocks in India has been provided with respect to the even portal. And then we have also made a national cold chain management information center with respect to the safe storage and management of vaccines in India. So what else needs to be done? All these exercises are either with respect to our first uh, immunization of children or with respect to our digital preparedness. But what else can be done? We will see in the way forward. The first is with respect to enhancing our digital footprint. So the even has to be even portal. Even basically stands for Electronic Vaccine Intelligence Network. So it needs to be scaled up. Presently, even portal is available. The information is available for only 12 states, and 9 states are in the process of implementing and providing stock for their vaccines. So it needs to be scaled up to cover the whole country. Second, this is on the technological foot. The next recommendation is with respect to there needs to be universal immunization or universal vaccination with respect to our adult population also. And in this, doctors need to play a vital role. And again, there are social issues associated with vaccination. For example, there are people who say that some kind of certain vaccines or immunization cause certain kind of issues which are not based on scientific data, right? So there needs to be increased awareness regarding the myths that are circulated around the vaccination, right? So this needs to be done. Second aspect is with respect to universal immunization with respect to primary basic diseases, right, with respect to even adults as well. And next, there needs to be adequate research with respect to disease burden. See, various researchers, medical colleges, so on and forth, need to carry out research that yes, this universal immunization will reduce the disease burden by this much number or this much amount. So once we will have the quantifiable data with respect to various diseases and disease burden associated and its improvement by the vaccination, we will be able to formulate better policies for the subsequent efforts with respect to immunization. So this is all that needs to be done with respect to immunization. Moving on to the prelim section. So for the prelims, we will be taking the following articles. The first one is a study that has been found, that has been carried out in a institution in Japan with respect to the methane production. Second one is a similar issue, the issue that we dealt in our main section as well, that is with respect to Article 39B. And the last one would be with respect to fertilizer subsidy. So the context of the first article is that in a study carried out in Japan, it has been found out that microbes and microbial activity produces much more methane than the fossil fuel. So traditionally, it was understood that fossil fuel consumption causes or produces much more methane in atmosphere than the traditional and agrarian activities. Over the period of time, this perception or this perspective has changed, and now researchers understand, the present understanding is that the agriculture and associated activities cause much more methane production in atmosphere than the fossil fuels. So let us see the article in detail. Let us understand few pointers with respect to methane, its importance. So methane is the second most important anthropogenic greenhouse gases after carbon dioxide. Sorry, carbon monoxide, that is CO. So after carbon monoxide, methane is one of the largest contributors of anthropogenic reason for greenhouse gases emission. Now global warming potential of methane is 28 times of carbon dioxide. The global warming potential is always carried out in terms or in multiplier of carbon dioxide. At present, it is understood that we are emitting 3 times more methane than we were producing 300 years ago. And methane has a higher potential over the shorter period of time when it comes to comparison with other gases. Now, what are the sources of methane? There are two sources. Obviously, the article itself says that there must be two sources. That is why there is a comparison. First one being biogenic sources and second one being thermogenic sources. So thermogenic forces are with respect to burning of fossil fuel, and biogenic sources of methane are with respect to animal rearing, that is with respect to animal excreta and the biological activities that go on in the digestive tracts of animals, especially with respect to cows, sheep, and these animals, right? And then second aspect of biogenic factor is with respect to wetlands. So obviously there is an increased number of wetlands also, and then one of the most important is with respect to paddy cultivation, right? Now what are the reasons? The article says that the reasons are increased rearing, animal rearing in South American region. So methane is generally made by a microorganism when this activity is carried out in the absence of oxygen. So the next reason is with respect to increased emission from waste worldwide, especially with reference to South Asian and Southeast Asian region. That is going to be a thermogenic reason. And the third is increased number of wetlands, especially in the South Asian and Southeast Asian region. And how do you understand that wetlands cause methane gas production, and paddy field also cause methane gas production? Because paddy cultivation needs waterlogged fields. So the microbial activities that are carried out beneath the soil uh, turn the gases, the various emission gases, into methane, and that is why paddy cultivation causes large amount of methane gas production. Now with this, how to address this particular issue with respect to methane gas production? So the first suggestion with respect to this is that we need to shift towards a plant rich diet. Why? Because paddy cultivation is one of the primary reasons for production of higher production of methane. As you can see in this particular diagram, one of the reason is fossil fuel production, and then agriculture and waste is the second issue with respect to the production of methane gas. And you can see here that wetlands are contributing in a higher number, and these are the other sources which are primarily important for the production of methane. So wetlands also include paddy fields as well. For our discussion and in this context, wetlands would also include the paddy fields as well, because you need standing water for the cultivation of paddy. Next, So once we shift towards the plant rich diet, what will happen? We will be moving away from the rice based diet, and that will help in reduction of methane gas. Next is with respect to improved feed and additives for the livestock. We need to provide, even our livestock, we need to provide improved feed so that there is lesser production of methane in the digestive tracts of animal. Next suggestion is with respect to better manure management. We need to use that particular manure or the waste that is coming out of the digestive tracts for development of biogas, and that biogas has to be used for productive purposes. And in this context, there is a United Nations convention known as UN Coronavia Convention, or joint work, UN Coronavia joint work on agriculture. It has suggested that we need to move towards resilient agriculture system, and we need to work towards improved livestock management. So that will be all with respect to this topic. Let us try to solve a PYQ. In 2022, the question was, among the following crops, which one of the following is most important anthropogenic source of both methane and nitrous oxide? So obviously the right answer was rice. Now you also know the reason, that because rice needs standing water. So this is one of the reasons for formation of methane gas. Now let us try to solve a practice question with reference to methane. Consider the following statements. Thermogenic methane are sourced from microbial action. Is this statement correct? Thermogenic methane is the outcome of burning of fossil fuel. So statement 1 is incorrect. Statement 2, greenhouse potential of methane is higher over a shorter period of time. So why is methane considered as one of the very dangerous gases when it comes to our environment? Because its potential is very high in a very small period of time. So again, there are chances of much more damage to our environment when methane is involved. So which one of the following statements are correct? The correct answer is 2 only. Next, we will move on to Article 39B. This particular article has appeared in Indian Express, page number 9. The headline reads that Supreme Court says Article 39B shouldn't be read like there is no protection to private rights. So again, why there is an ongoing debate also at both fronts. On the electoral front as well, one particular party says that we will carry out the wealth census or property census, and then the other party says that this is a road trip towards communism. So even the heated political debates are being carried out, and even in Supreme Court there is an ongoing case. It is a very old case that has been reopened, and a 9-judge constitutional bench of Supreme Court is listening to this particular case. Now the case is still ongoing. We do not have a judgment in front of us to discuss upon. So we will just be dealing with the within the limit of this particular article, that is Article 39 clause B. What is the context of this news? The Supreme Court has established a 9-judge constitutional bench, obviously, to settle a scope of community resources. Now this wording, community resources, is the bone of the contention in this particular case, and Supreme Court is trying to interpret what exactly the term community resources entail. Does it also encompass private resources or only the collective resources? That is the bone of contention under Article 39B. Now let us read what does the article say. Okay. Article 39 clause B says that states shall follow the policy that the ownership and control of material resources of the community are so distributed as to best serve the common good. That means the community resources are to be used in a way that the common use gets maximized, right? Now what are the relevant case laws when it comes to Article 39B? The one of the first cases that came in front of the Supreme Court was State of Karnataka versus Ranganath Reddy, that is in 1978. Here again, this particular term material resources was under the question in Supreme Court. So Justice Krishna Iyer, one of the progressive judges at that point of time, said that material resources of the community covered all resources, means this particular term covers all the resources, that is natural. It can be a natural resource, it can be a man-made resource, even it can be a publicly owned resource. Publicly owned means owned by the state, owned by the government, or it can be a privately owned resource as well, right? Material resources will encompass individual resource, public resource, state owned resource, so on and forth. And then this particular opinion of Justice Krishna Iyer was further reaffirmed by the Constitution bench in Sanjeev Coke Manufacturing versus Bharat Coking Co Limited. This is again one of the landmark cases when it comes to Article 39B. However, a dissenting judgment in this particular case, that is Karnataka versus Ranganath Reddy case, was given by Justice Untavalia. And he said that he did not subscribe to that particular view. That means he did not mean that material resources should mean all individual, private, state owned, and because this becomes a recipe for communism, right? So as of now, present observations means the debate is already undergoing, that is, as I've already said. So what is the inclination of judiciary as of now? Justice Chandrachud has remarked that constitutional provisions have certain kind of evolution. So those the backdrop of Justice Krishna's approach and interpretation was rested in the socio-economic climate of 1978, right? The situation of the country at that point of time was very much different from what is now today. We are going from an era of bank nationalization to an era of decentralization, right? So approach is changed, economic policies, economic philosophy, the world order has changed, and we need to change accordingly, right? That is what the judiciary has as of now observed. And he further goes on and comments that 39B cannot be read and interpreted as if it provides an unbridled agenda for communism, because once you interpret that all the material resources means all the resources, even if it is a privately owned resource, even if it is a company owned resource, that means you go whole red, right? There is no scope of private property. And as we learned in our first discussion, even as of now, right to property is acknowledged by the Constitution of India, even though it does not have the same legal same sanctity as it once had under Article 19(1)(f), but still it enjoys the status of a constitutional right under Article 300A, right? So right to property is still recognized under the Constitution of India. And the judge has also reaffirmed and said that Constitution protects the right to property and right to carry out business as well, right? So in this context, let us solve one MCQ based on the concept of Article 39B. We are not going into the details of the case because the judiciary is still observing, understanding and debating the issue. In past 2021, there was a question from the directive principles of state policy. Under the Indian Constitution, the concentration of wealth violates. The answer was B, the directive principles of state policy. So directive principles of state policy are important when it comes to even your prelims examination, as we see, and also the mains examination, right? Especially your GS paper 2 and GS paper 4. Now let us solve a practice MCQ Consider the following statement. According to DPSP, the state shall ensure that ownership and control of material resources, the term that is the bone of contention, the term that is on which debate is ongoing. Material resources of the community are to be distributed to the best of the greatest benefit of greatest number. Now till here the statement is correct, but does Article 39B say that the resources are to be so distributed to maximize the greatest benefit of greatest number? No. This philosophy is very Benthamite philosophy, greatest happiness of greatest number, but obviously our constitution does not say that. Constitution says that they are to be distributed as to best serve the common good. The constitution uses common good approach. Common good, that is what the constitution says. So statement 1 is incorrect. Now let us come to statement 2. The community resources has been defined by the constitution. Does Article 39B define community resource? No, it just says material resource and community resources, right? It does not define what it means by community resource. Had the constitution defined it, there wouldn't be any debate. By this particular case law, we are trying to interpret what is the meaning of this term, right? So again, statement 2 is also incorrect. Which of the statement given are correct? Answer is D. Moving on to the last topic, the context of this article is fertilizer subsidy. What is the context? Due to the rise in input cost, most importantly the input cost for which the price has risen is with respect to the natural gas, right? Why? Because of two conflicts. First one already going on because of Russia-Ukraine war, and the second one with respect to Israel-Iran tensions, right? So because of the rise in the price of natural gas, the fertilizer subsidy for financial year 2024 has been increased by a amount of 6,500 crore. So that is what the news reads. Now let us understand what are the, in this context, let us understand what are the issues in the fertilizer subsidy regime in India. So first issue is with respect to the regulated prices. Since the prices are regulated, by regulated price we mean that prices are kind of almost fixed by the government. Either the government provides subsidies to the companies or to the farmers in one way or the other. At least one stakeholder gets the subsidy that are being provided to the fertilizers. So fertilizers are highly subsidized to keep the farming activity of the farmer profitizing enterprise, and also to keep farming as a gaining enterprise, right? Then the next aspect with respect to fertilizer subsidy is illegal diversion of fertilizer subsidy for other sectors, right? So fertilizer subsidy is diverted to various other sectors, other manufacturing sectors, because urea also acts as a raw material for production of various plastics as well, right? Then third aspect with respect to this issue of fertilizer subsidy is with respect to its regressive nature. Since this subsidy is provided in a uniform manner, it benefits the richer farmers of the north more than the poorer farmers of, let us say, Bihar or Maharashtra, right? So it has a regressive nature. The richer farmers get to benefit more from the subsidy regime than the poorer farmers. Then another issue with respect to fertilizer subsidy is that it is the burden of subsidy with respect to fertilizers is increasing day by day on the government, right? First one with respect to the ongoing geopolitical climate, and then again with respect to the increased use of fertilizer by the farmers because of the insecurities provided by the climate change as well. Next aspect is with respect to breach of WTO norms. WTO principle puts this subsidy provided for fertilizers under the amber box, and that this becomes a bone of contention when we have to go and face the WTO officials that why are you providing so much fertilizer subsidies, right? So this is one of the issues. The next issue is also with respect to the inverted duty structure. The raw material that is needed for the production of fertilizers is put under the increased tax bracket as per GST, but the final product is put under the smaller tax bracket under the GST regime. So that is the issue, again the issue with respect to the fertilizer subsidy. Now, what are the steps taken by the government to deal with all the issues with respect to fertilizer subsidies in India? The first one being reduced bag size. Most importantly, for urea, earlier the bag size used to be 50 kgs. So farmer was using urea in an excessive manner, more than what was required for the soil type. So now the government has reduced the size of the urea bag so that farmer uses the bag in a more careful manner. The government has again come up with a soil health card scheme. I hope you all know what this particular scheme pertains to. In this particular scheme, farmer can go and get his or her soil assessed, that what kind of particular nutrient deficiency the soil is having, and only that particular fertilizer would be applied to the soil. Then the government has come up with neem coated urea with a twin benefit. First one being that it would be beneficial for the farmer, and the second one being that the urea would not be routed to other industries for which it can be used as a raw material, because it is highly subsidized in India. Then the government has come up with the concept of nano urea. What is the meaning of nano urea? It basically it is all about the molecular structure. You will get the more details about nano urea in the detailed PDF that is being uploaded. So because of its small size, its application gets better results. So nano urea is one of the innovations that the government has undertaken for improved urea consumption. Then government has come up with new urea policy in which we are promoting indigenous production and energy efficient urea production, because again it is a highly energy intensive process. And then the government has also come up with various schemes such as Paramparagat Krishi Yojana and PM Pranam scheme. Now in this context, let us understand what is PM Pranam scheme. This particular scheme is an abbreviation for Pradhan Mantri Program for Restoration, Awareness, Nourishment and Amelioration of Mother Earth, right? So this particular scheme is aimed to promote balanced use of fertilizers by reducing chemical based fertilizer. So one of the objective is to reduce the dependency or reduce the overall use of chemical based fertilizers. So what will this scheme entail? In this scheme, center will financially incentivize the states by paying them a grant of 50%. This particular grant will come out of the savings from the existing fertilizer schemes, and these particular scheme will not be levying any additional cesses or taxes on the people or citizens. Next, the states will be required to use these grants. So once out of the excess funds, the states would be required to use these grants to promote consumption of alternate fertilizers. More importantly, the bio alternatives to the fertilizers. The 70% corpus of the scheme would be for the promotion of alternate fertilizers, and the rest 30% would be to reward and encourage farmers, panchayats and other stakeholders in the fertilizer production and awareness generation, first with respect to the negative effects of excessive use of chemical fertilizers, and second with respect to the promotion of other alternatives fertilizers. Now in the past, in 2014, there was a question that with reference to union budget, which of the following are covered under non-plan expenditure? So you must also revise your PYQs as well. Solving PYQ has many benefits, some of being that you get your concepts cleared again and again, right? The answer was C, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. This means that all these things are covered under the non-plan expenditure, that is defense, interest, salaries and subsidies. On the similar lines, we have made a question on PM Pranam scheme. How many of the following statements are correct about the PM Pranam scheme recently launched by the government of India? First, the state government are given financial incentive to reduce the consumption of chemical fertilizers. Yes, this is one of the purpose of PM Pranam scheme, to promote the consumption of fertilizers, chemical fertilizers. Yes, this is correct. So the scheme is financed by levying a separate cess on manufacturing of chemical fertilizers. No, there is no such provision that existing producers would be levied by additional cess. There, in fact, it explicitly mentions that there is not going to be any levy of additional cess on the traditional manufacturers of fertilizers. So statement number 2 is incorrect. The states are required to use these grants to promote consumption of alternate fertilizers. Yes, the savings, the gains that are going to be there with the government is going to be spent on promotion of alternate fertilizers for the country. So how many of the statements are correct? Statement 1 is correct, 2 is incorrect, 3 is correct. The answer would be B, 2 only. So with this, I'll take your leave. Study hard, and that would be all from my side. Thank you.